Can you guys see what's going on here? This is the DJI Ronin 4D 6K version. And this camera was all the hype just a few months ago. But with the announcement of the 8K version, everyone has shifted their attention to that one. And all of that makes a lot of sense, but I want to do a before you buy or before you test out that version of this camera, let's look at this one, because in a lot of ways, they're exactly the same with a few key differences that will ultimately help, that I believe should be considered before making this decision. All right, I'm gonna stop moving around like this. My name is Andrew. Welcome to the Lens Journals channel. And yeah, it's time I gotta stop doing active track. It's so good though. Cut. This is not going to be an in-depth analysis of either one of these cameras. This is a breakdown of whether or not the 8K version makes sense. Because in my mind, well, I have a lot of questions at least. The key difference between the 8K version and other versions before this is really going to boil down to the sensor. The sensor size on the 6K version is 24 megapixels. The sensor size on the 8K version is going to be 44 megapixels. It's significantly different, and that makes a lot of sense. 8K sensors, you're gonna get a lot of information, you're gonna get a lot of detail, you're gonna be able to punch in and out of your image pretty far, and that's really great. But that's kind of where things branch off. Outside of that, the cameras are very much the same, especially in function. So let me talk about the things that I really loved about this camera that are going to be in the new camera. First off, we gotta talk about the built-in NDs. You're gonna have 8 stops of ND in each camera, and it's really phenomenal. I love built-in NDs. The Canon C70 has it, which is my main production camera, and I absolutely love having that option. No matte boxes, no screw-on filters in the camera. Get your image how you want it. That's so good. Next, I actually really do enjoy the LiDAR recording, though I've had the most issue with it in this setting. Sitting down, talking to the camera, I might be a little bit too far out of its range, but I like the idea of it. And when I was manually focusing with it and I had peaking on, I was able to land my focus, get my marks how I wanted them, and that felt really good. So I think LiDAR's pretty sick. Both cameras have 14 stops of dynamic range, and both cameras can shoot internally 422 ProRes as well as H.264 at 10-bit. Here's some other standout things for me about these cameras that I really did love. The hand grips, the 4D hand grips are really very cool. And using them, I mean, it's so intuitive. It kind of feels like a video game controller. Like it reminds me of the old Wii controllers in a way. Everything you need is right at your fingertips. For me, on the right-hand side, I had focus and I had a couple different menu options. On the left-hand side, I had gimbal control and a few other autofocus options, which I think is really intuitive and brilliant. What's cool about this camera is once you get to recording, once you get your settings set, maybe before you start rolling, you're not gonna have to go and touch the menu or do anything like mid-roll because you have these nice functionalities right here at your fingertips. The next thing obviously is this Z-axis gimbal attached to this camera. And I know we've all seen the comparisons of the chicken, stabilizing itself. Well, this is exactly what that looks like. And I was trying to figure out really the best application for this camera. So I went down to the greenhouse and I went ahead and filmed my friend Amy just taking care of her plants, and this is what I got. I know I'm not winning any cinematic awards here, but I just thought that this is the best application for this camera. You see, when it's just locked off on a tripod, I don't really understand the value of this camera. I don't understand why you wouldn't get an FX3, FX30, C70, R5C. Those just make sense. If we're not moving around and we don't need a lot of stabilization, just use that. But if you have a lot of movement, if you're doing run and gun filmmaking, you're doing music videos that need a lot of fluid movement, this is a great move. I could really see you taking advantage of this and treating it almost sometimes like a robot arm, the way that it can move and the controls that you have, as well as just getting really tight, clean shots. My last note about using the camera is just that it is actually very heavy. My back hurt, my arms were hurting. It's a lot to hold out in front of you, even though it's designed to do that. So I thought maybe to alleviate some of the pressure if you're on a long set, would be to get an Easyrig, connect it to the top handle that the camera comes with, and that will alleviate some of the tension. You can still have that free flow Z-axis gimbal goodness. I decided to use the native lenses with this camera on this sensor. They work really well. I have seen some issues with people using larger lenses and not being able to get the gimbal to balance, which is a classic blunder when it comes to using gimbals in general. And that kind of goes to my last point that I wanted to communicate to you all. I am someone who kind of avoids gimbals. I think they're heavy. I think the pain of setting them up is really annoying. I don't always love a fluid motion. Sometimes I like jerkiness, which, you know, that's creative decisions and you don't have to agree with that. That's totally fine. But here's where I think DJI is really trying to step into that kind of discourse and solve a problem. So the way I see it, DJI is trying to cut out that frustration and that middleman. One, instead of having to worry about balancing a mirrorless camera with a lens onto a gimbal, powering everything, getting everything to talk to one another, you have everything in one package, which I think is a huge value. I really do. Two, they went ahead and just threw some really great specs into this camera. This is definitely a cinema grade camera. And I think that's where the magic lies in this whole system, is that cutting out the middleman and being ready for any action immediately. With a press of a button to power it on and a press of a button to turn on the gimbal, you're good to go. So which one? 8K, 6K, 4K, 1000K, I don't know, whatever version they come out with next. Which one's right for you? Well, for me personally, I don't have a need to shoot in 8K. I just don't. I don't have a need to shoot in 6K. 4K is perfect for me, and I think that 4K is perfect for a lot of people. If you're a documentary filmmaker, a run and gun wedding filmmaker, things like that, then just make it easy on yourself and film in 4K is my opinion, unless you need to punch in or unless you need that high fidelity, high detailed image. And that's honestly all I have for you all today. I just wanted to do this before you buy, before you test out the 8K. Let's go ahead and revisit the 6K and the other models before it, because they're a lot alike. There's a lot of similarities, and you may be spending money and spending energy in an area that you may not need to in order to get the results that you want. And I don't want to burst anyone's bubble. I don't want to deflate anyone's excitement. I'm just trying to get you the right gear for your project. And if you want to test these out for yourself, you know where to go. Check the link down below, lensrolls.com. Test them out. Let me know what you think. If you love the 8K version for any specific reason that I didn't mention, go ahead and let me know. Nicely, though. Be nice. Don't be mean. We're building a good community here, a friendly community here. And that, my friends, is a wrap. I can't wait to see you in the next one. All right. Peace.